And greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. And today, Brunch with Bernie. Get your calls ready. Our number, 866-987-THOM. Senator Sanders is not going to be available on Friday, so we're going to have Brunch with Bernie here on Wednesday. And yes, it's Wednesday, and we're live. And Bernie, welcome to the studio.
Great to be with you,
Senator Sanders. I'm sorry. I should be more respectful.
No, that's okay.
It's great to have you here with us. What are your thoughts on what's going on, this whole spectacle that we're seeing?
There's so much that's going on. Let me just try to back it up a little bit. The first thing that people have to understand is the major political outrage of this whole process in terms of the government shutdown and the threat not to pay our bills has to do with John Boehner in the House, who is the Speaker of the House. You have 432 members of the House, 232 Republicans, 200 Democrats. In order to get a majority vote on the floor, you need something like 217 votes. So from day one, what Boehner has been saying is we're only going to work within the Republican caucus. That means we need to get 217 out of 232 votes for anything. So 16 wild and crazy guys out there, and there are more than that, can sabotage any effort.
This is the old Hastert rule?
Well, I don't.
Or some variation.
The answer is a variation on it. But this is not God-given.
Yeah.
So from day one, this crisis could have been solved by simply having Boehner operate as the Speaker of the U.S. House and not the Speaker of the Republican Party. Okay? You got to understand that.
Yeah.
So when you got 20 or 30 extreme right-wing people, many of them who are sworn on a stack of Bibles never to extend the debt ceiling, it's a virtually impossible task to do it. And they failed. They failed. Last night, they completely disintegrated. So that's number one. Number two, what people should know is that this tragedy, this nightmare, has already caused irreparable harm to this country. If you look at our standing in the international community, we are presumably not only the largest economy, but the leader of the free world. And if you think that in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, all over this world, Africa, people are not saying, what kind of country is this when they can't even keep their government open and they can't even pay their bills? And you have China beginning to become very assertive about this issue. Why is America the leader of the world, and so forth and so on? It's irreparable damage in terms of our prestige and standing in the world community. Thirdly, in terms of people's faith and confidence in their own government, you got 1 million or so federal employees, hardworking people, who have not gotten a paycheck and are scared to death that they may not get a paycheck soon. These are people who have to pay their mortgages, their car loans, their college loans. They're like everybody else. They got to buy food. They got to take care of their family. Some of them are two people working, couples, both husband and wife work for the federal government, causing tremendous anxiety for them. And then you have the tens of millions of people, veterans who absolutely depend upon their pensions, their VA pensions, their disability benefits, in order literally to survive. A lot of these folks don't have a lot of money. People on Social Security worried that if the government defaults, there is a reasonable chance that they may not get their checks in the immediate future. So tremendous anxiety and faith in our own country. If you're a kid, in high school who would be giving some thought to getting involved in the political process, paying attention, what are you thinking now about the United States government? Do you want to work for the government? I suspect, Tom, that at the end of the day, we'll have lost thousands of federal employees who say, look, I haven't gotten a pay raise in 3 years. I got furloughed. Now I'm, sent home for several weeks without a paycheck. What do I want to work for the federal government for? I'll go out and get a job someplace else. And we're going to lose some of our best people, experienced people, and other people are not going to want to come. And this becomes then a self-fulfilling prophecy for the right-wing extremists.
Right.
You destroy government, and lo and behold, government can't do much. So, all right, having said that, I'm going to vote for this agreement because obviously the alternative is catastrophic. We can't default. That will cause an international financial crisis. And we have to reopen the government for all the reasons that I gave. But I want everybody to understand that this agreement is a bad agreement in terms of the level of funding that will continue until January 15th. So we're looking at $988 billion, which is sequestration level funding.
Right. So we're continuing austerity.
Exactly. austerity for working families. That means major cutbacks for Head Start, major cutbacks for the Meals on Wheels program, major cutbacks for all kinds of programs that help low and moderate income people. And that's what we have. Now, as part of this agreement, and the agreement hasn't been finalized yet, so I'm talking a little bit before the reality is, there is another part of it which says that there will be a conference, probably the Budget Committee, on which I serve, which will then try to deal with future budget issues going into the future, what happens after January 15th. And here's the most important point to be made, I think, with regard to that. In America today, we are living in a nation where, as you've heard me say many, many times, the middle class of this country is disappearing. Tens of millions of Americans are working longer hours for low wages. Most of the new jobs being created are part-time jobs, low-wage jobs. Poverty today at 46.5 million is at an all-time high. We've never had more people living in poverty than now. But in the midst of all of that, the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations are doing phenomenally well. So you have incredible income and wealth inequality. You have the top 1% owning 38% of the wealth of the nation, and the bottom 60% owning 2.3%. You have in the last few years 95% of all new income going to the top 1%. I mean, it's just extraordinary. So now we come into negotiations as to, okay, what kind of budget do we have in the future? Now, as you know, everybody knows, budget composes two parts. Number one is revenue. Number two is expenditures. Okay? What our Republican friends are saying is, not only do we not want more revenue to come in, we want to give more tax breaks to very profitable corporations. 1 out of 4 corporations in America pay zero in federal income tax because they stash their money in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and other tax havens. And obviously, if we're serious about a responsible budget, we have to end that fiasco. The people who, these corporations are going to have to stop paying their fair share of taxes. We have huge tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry and other industries, and that has got to be ended. So the debate that is going to take place, Tom, is, as this committee is assembled, if this thing is passed, is that how do we go forward in terms of a way that is fair? Do we continue to bring austerity to the elderly, to the children, to the middle class, to the sick, and to the poor? Or do we ask the wealthiest people in this country who are doing just phenomenally well, and the large corporations to stop paying their fair share of taxes? That is what the debate will be about.
Now, that's going to be between the time of this vote, and the New York Times just announced it's going to be an evening vote in the Senate. They just
I got a plane to catch. I hope it is early evening.
Yeah, and so, but this, you're talking about that debate. It's going to be after this vote in the Senate, the House, and the President signs this, and before the end of the year.
Right. The goal is for the committee to reach some agreement by December 15th. And
you think it will?
We will see. I hope so. I mean, a lot of this has to do with how the American people respond. I mean, the Republicans now have kind of retreated on this whole thing because they are perceiving that the American people understand that it is totally crazy, that because they want to destroy Obamacare and defund it, that they bring the government to a halt. But I think in the same sense, if the American people understand that we must not balance the budget on the backs of the middle class, we can win this fight.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Be sure to check out Bernie's website over at sanders.senate.gov. We'll be back with your calls for Senator Bernie Sanders. It's Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday. We're 2 days early. We're doing Brunch with Bernie today. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Once again, Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. And welcome back. Ralph in Grand Island, Nebraska. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanders, could you explain what happened on October 1st when they changed that rule about bringing something up on the Congress floor? Only the Speaker could do it, or whoever he designated, or something of that.
Well, I think it was later than October 1st, actually, Ralph. I spent 16 years in the House, and I'm sure the House is very different today than it was then, and the rules are different. But among other things, I think you had two things. Number one, you had the ability of 218 members of the Congress to sign a discharge petition. So in other words, if the majority of members wanted a bill brought up and the Speaker or the Rules Committee did not want that bill to come forward, the way to go around them is to have a petition with 218. That's one thing. The second thing is that when the Senate, as I understand it, when the Senate passes legislation, members have the right to demand that the House deal with that legislation. What I think Boehner and his friends did is change that rule because they were scared to death. What we have known from day one is that if a halfway decent bill got to the floor of the House, you would have virtually every Democrat voting for it and 20, 30, 40 or more Republicans voting for it. It would pass. So the whole problem from day one, as I mentioned earlier, is that Boehner has refused to allow that to happen. So what they have done is now tightened up and said, the only way that we're going to vote is if the Speaker allows it rather than members coming up.
Yeah, that's bizarre. Paul in South Lyon, Michigan. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, how you doing, Senator?
Good.
Thanks for doing your best to protect the American people. First, I have a rhetorical question. If you or Elizabeth Warren were president right now, what laws would you be able to get through this Republican-controlled Congress? And obviously the answer is zero. So my question is, shouldn't our number one goal as progressives be to fumigate the Congress of all Republicans? Let's educate people that if you want to lose your Social Security and Medicare, keep voting Republican. If you want more air and water pollution, keep voting Republican. More global warming, keep voting Republican. If you want to take a pay cut and lose your job, keep voting Republican.
Well, Paul, let me jump in because you've asked a very good question. Obviously, all of the media has been focused on this nightmare that we're currently experiencing with the government shutdown and the threat not to pay our bills and cause an international financial crisis. But Paul's point is a very good point. Tom, if you were to ask me, what has the United States Congress done since January? What have we done?
I think there's been a bunch of post offices named after Ronald Reagan.
Maybe that, and maybe we passed the helium bill.
Yeah.
We cannot, because of, Paul's point is well taken. I don't like the word fumigate, but Paul's point is absolutely right. Given the significant crises that we face as a nation, and that is a collapsing middle class, the need to rebuild a crumbling infrastructure, the need to make college affordable, the need to significantly improve our early childhood education, the need to deal with the planetary crisis of global warming, the need, bottom line, to expand the middle class rather than to see it shrink. Do I think we can accomplish that so long as the Tea Party controls the U.S. House? No, I do not.
We'll be back with more of Senator Sanders right after this, 20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's Wednesday's version of Brunch with Bernie. Bernie won't be around on Friday, so we're doing it today. And Matt in Chicago, Illinois, listening on that blowtorch of a station, WCPT. Matt, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, hello, gentlemen. Senator Sanders, what happens when the rest of the world, when the economy decides we no longer want the U.S. currency to be the reserve currency of the world? What happens to the U.S. dollar and the U.S. economy?
Well, thank you very much for asking that question, Matt. And that is why I began this show by saying that the damage done already is irreparable. Because there are more and more people all over the world who are looking at the United States and saying, no, you cannot be the foundation for the world's economy. We think you're too unstable. We think you have right-wing extremists who threatening, who have shut down the government, threatening not to pay the bills, and you want us to follow you as the foundation of the world's economy. So I think, Matt's point is exactly right. These guys in the Tea Party are working hard, it seems to me, to make this country a second-rate nation. And that's really the simple truth. They don't want us to improve education. And I want to, if I can use Matt's question, just go a little bit further. What I hope people understand is that the Republican resistance to Obamacare, and I voted for Obamacare, I voted for the Affordable Care Act, that I saw that as a modest step forward. We got 48 million people today without any health insurance. This would insure another 20 million people. It would put more money into disease prevention. I think there are mechanisms in it that would help us control the escalating cost of health care. But nobody thinks that this is the end all. We are the only nation in the industrialized world that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right through a national health care program. And this obviously is not that. But what the Republicans were fearful of is that if Obamacare becomes successful and people get health insurance that otherwise did not have it, if people get a better deal than they currently have now, more cost-effective health insurance, then the right wing's dream of cutting back will be detoured very significantly. Here is what these guys want, and maybe this is the most important point that has to be gotten out. What the Koch brothers and these other right-wing extremists want is not just defunding Obamacare. That's just the tip of the iceberg. They have a very different vision for society. What they want is to end Social Security, probably not immediately, but over a period of time, privatize Social Security. They want to end Medicare as we know it, and we saw the Ryan plan a couple of years ago, which voucherizes Medicare, gives people an $8,000 check, and if you come down with cancer, good luck to you with your $8,000 check that will last 2 or 3 days. But that's their vision. Massive cuts in Medicaid. They want to eliminate the Environmental Protection Agency so the corporations will be able to pollute our air and our water with impunity. Nobody but there to stop them. They want to end the Department of Education. They want to end the Department of Energy. And here's something that just blows me away completely. Right now, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, which is grossly inadequate to protect the millions and millions of people who are trying to get by on low wages. Do you know what the Republican solution to that is, Tom?
Do away with the minimum wage altogether.
Exactly.
Yes.
To eliminate the concept. And the broad issue here is this is their understanding of freedom. Yeah. Now, freedom comes, in this case, from the Koch brothers, who are worth $71 billion. So they're saying to the people of Alabama and Mississippi and all these states, you have the freedom not to have any health insurance for yourselves and your kid. And you have the freedom to work for $3 an hour. And you have the freedom to breathe polluted air or dirty water. What more can you want in terms of freedom? That is their message. Now, very few people in America understand that. So when we are dealing with this Obamacare, this is just one small part of a right-wing agenda which is attempting through Citizens United and the ability to buy and sell politicians to transform our nation and to repeal virtually every piece of legislation passed in the last 80 years. And I'm not exaggerating, that protects working families, the elderly, the children, the sick, and the poor.
Michael in Imperial Beach, California. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Senator Sanders. Well, you sort of stole my thunder there. I saw your speech on the Senate's floor today, Senator Sanders, about saying 1 in 4 corporations do not pay taxes at all. 1% made 95% of all the pluses in money this year. So I'm going to change ships. No one can deny that the U.S. has the most mind-boggling military in the world. So if the world un-Americanizes the American dollars, what will we do with our mind-boggling military, in your opinion?
Well, I'll tell you what we should do. I mean, I think we need a strong military, but we damn well do not need a military whose size is almost equivalent to every other nation on Earth. So you have all over Europe, countries are investing in healthcare. In many of these countries, college education is free. Parental leave is much, much more generous than anything that people in this country are thinking of. We're spending our money on the military, and they're providing for their kids and their elderly and for working families. So I think we need a strong military, but I think we can, in fact, make significant cuts in military spending.
Bernie, we have just a minute to the end. Do you see any of that coming about?
Well, it gets back to the question I think it was Matt asked a moment ago. So long as you have right-wing extremists controlling the U.S. House of Representatives, I am extremely pessimistic about passing significant legislation which addresses the many, many crises facing our country. Just using one example, what the scientific community tells us overwhelmingly is that global warming is the greatest planetary crisis that we face. And we have a major party, the Republican Party, that not only does not want to do anything to address the crisis of global warming, they think it's a hoax.
Yeah. In fact, we just released a movie, a 10-minute web-based video called Last Hours. I wrote it, I narrate it, I'm in it. George DiCaprio and Earl Katz produced it. And it's out there. It's free on YouTube. Anybody can find it at lasthours.org. And we're talking about how the geologists, not just the atmosphere scientists, but the geologists are saying there's parallels between now and the previous mass extinctions. This is serious stuff. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
It's Brunch with Bernie on Wednesday. Back with more of Bernie with your calls in just a second. Sanders.senate.gov. Welcome back to the place where despair is not an option, the Thom Hartmann Program. Senator Bernie Sanders with us, our Wednesday version of Brunch with Bernie. Bernie's not going to be around. He's not going to be here in town on Friday and available for us. So, Bernie, pick up more calls?
Let's do it.
Okay. Larry in Edmonds, Washington. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Bernie, for all you do. And what I'd like to ask is, wouldn't it be appropriate if everyone running for a legislature and being appointed to the Supreme Court had to pass a civics test, a test on the Constitution and Bill of Rights, equivalent to somebody applying for citizenship in the United States?
Well, it's an interesting concept, Larry. I just, Tom, a couple of weeks ago, when the Supreme Court was doing oral hearings on that new campaign finance law. Was it McCutcheon?
Yeah.
And
McCutcheon and the GOP versus FEC.
Right. And I went there. I've never been to an oral hearing before, and it was interesting. But here's what you got with the Supreme Court and campaign finance reform. When they passed 3 years ago, Citizens United, they opened the floodgate of incredible sums of money into the political process. So they gave the billionaires in this country the opportunity to buy and sell politicians. And now they want to go even further. So when we talk about the Supreme Court, all that I would say, and I heard their discussion, and it really seemed unworldly. They really did not have a clue about what goes on in the real world. And where Citizens United is applicable today, where it's really having an impact today, is if you listen closely to the right-wing extremists in the House, what they are saying and have said in the last couple of weeks, they go to any so-called moderate Republican, they say, you want to vote to reopen the government and not destroy the Affordable Care Act, we're going to find a candidate to primary you, and that candidate will have all the money he or she needs from our multi-billion-dollar friends. So you're already seeing, and that emboldens the extreme right wing. It brings terror to, moderate type folks who say, oh my God, if I vote to open up the government and pay our bills, some millions of dollars are going to come in against me. So that is what the Citizens United decision has already done. And these guys now want to give even more capability to billionaires to spend money on campaigns.
Reggie in Baldwin Park, California. Reggie, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, Senator Sanders. I just wanted to say it's a real pleasure to talk to you. I've always wanted to ask you a plethora of questions, but today I actually have like a two-part statement that I would like you to elaborate on. And I honestly, personally, I think this whole, well, let me say it like this. The Republican Party is being portrayed as standing up against the defund Obamacare. My question is why they're not standing up to blocked the Trans-Pacific Partnership? Why did they not stand up against the National Defense Authorization Act or the Monsanto Act? Why are they, why is it being portrayed this way by our media? If you could elaborate on that, as well as your opinion on the fact that the United States of America is becoming increasingly more like a police state.
Okay.
Thank you, Reggie.
Okay, thanks for your good questions, Reggie. In terms of Obamacare, I'm going to get to your questions, but I wanted to say this. We did a hearing last week. It was really a good hearing. I am chairman of the subcommittee on primary health care. And I brought in some real experts. And I said, if we were to defund Obamacare and deny some 20 million Americans the opportunity to get some form of health insurance, how many people would die? What most Americans don't know is that we are losing about 45,000 people every single year, according to a Harvard study, because they don't get to a doctor when they should, and they don't get to a doctor when they should because they have no health insurance or their deductibles or co-payments are too high, and they just don't have the money to get to a doctor. So they get sicker and sicker, and then they finally crawl into a doctor's office, and the doctor says, guess what? Your situation is now terminal. Why didn't you come in here 6 months ago? That's the reality. If you were to deny health insurance to the 20 million people who would be covered under the Affordable Care Act, there's no question. No one can say exactly how many. Thousands and thousands of people would die who otherwise will stay alive. That's number one. Reggie's point, though, focuses on what the NSA is doing. And every day you pick up the paper, you see another outrage. And it's not simply that virtually every telephone call made in this country, the record of that, not the content of it, but the fact that you made that call is on file with the NSA. But we're learning more and more that the NSA and other agencies are getting into emails, getting into websites. It is very, very, very frightening. And it is an issue. I mean, when we talk about how in the last number of weeks the great mission of Congress is to pay our bills and keep government open, these are exactly the kinds of issues that we should be talking about. Do we really believe in freedom? Do we really believe in privacy? Or do you think the United States government should be able to check on your emails, the websites that you visit, and your telephone calls? Is that really what we mean by a free society? To my mind, that is not what we mean by a free society. And I'm working with other senators to significantly curtail what the NSA and the other intelligence agencies do. Terrorism is a serious problem. We have to protect the American people. But you can do it without undermining the basic constitutional rights of the people of our country. And that's what we've got to fight for.
John in St. Louis, Missouri. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Sanders. I only wish that other senators that or in the chamber, if you would do this and speak openly with the people. The other day, one of the senators had a meeting with several business people that are in the banking, the travel industry, and they were talking about that this shutdown is only just a pinprick to them, according to the GOP, but according to them, it's not a pinprick. This is a major disaster to them. It seems that Republicans are good at manufacturing problems more than resolving them. So what do you feel about that meeting? Have you reviewed it, and how do you feel about it?
Well, John, this is what we do know. We know, and there was, I think, a piece either in the Washington Post or the New York Times today, that this 2-week shutdown is already having a very significant impact on the economy. It is already resulting in jobs being lost. There's no question that it's going to impact our GDP. So anyone who tells you that this shutdown has not impacted our economy is just not telling you the truth. And obviously, if the Congress were not to pay our bills that we have already accumulated for the first time in the history of this country, the word that economists are using is catastrophic. That in a global economy, no one knows exactly what will happen, but it could be disastrous. In worst case, it could drive the world into a depression or a significant recession. So anyone who tells you that this is not real, not to mention that there are 1 million workers in this country who do not have a paycheck, have not received their paychecks, and are unable to go out and pay their bills. So This has already caused significant economic problems, and it will only get worse if we don't address it today.
Dawn in Greeley, Colorado, listening on AM 760 out of Denver. Dawn, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, Bernie, I would like to ask you, what are the chances of anyone charging these people with sedition or treason? I'm just watching all this happen, and it seems like such traitorous behavior in Congress. It's maddening.
It is maddening. I don't think, you're going to be... I mean, the way to win this thing is just to defeat these guys politically. And by the way, I think we now have an opportunity to do that. I think, as anybody who follows this stuff knows, the Republican brand name now is almost as low as it has ever been. All kinds of people are turning away from them. Independents are turning away from them. Moderates are turning away from them. And I believe that we do have an opportunity to take back the House of Representatives. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I just do not believe how this country is going to address any of its serious problems so long as these right-wing extremists control the House. And I think there's got to be a lot of energy and organization at the grassroots level, money, to make sure that Republicans do not continue to control the House. So.
Frank in Cambridge, Mass. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, thank you for taking the call. First of all, I'd like to say that Bernie Sanders could be the new rap senator, because I was listening to Topsy Part 2 in the background, and he was talking, and they just all of a sudden just jibed. I could hear his message a lot clearer. But what my original question was, I saw this morning some news, this is mainstream media news, that Senator Mike Lee and Ted Cruz are going to stand up against something that's they're going to block a bill from going. Now, I understand that senators have
Frank, we just have 30 seconds.
Frank, let me respond. The latest that I've heard is that is not the case. The absurdity of rules in the Senate, that if Senator Cruz or Senator Lee or I wanted to go down and say, I object to a unanimous consent proposal, which in this case would bring up the legislation, which would end the government shutdown and the possibility of default. If I went there and said, I object, or Cruz went there and said, I object, it would take days for that bill to reappear. My understanding, what I last heard, I don't know if the world has changed, as Cruz indicated he would not do that.
Yeah, that's where it stands. And a reporter asked him, well, what did you get out of this? And he said, I got 2 million names on a petition. And he's raised $700,000. So anyway, we'll be back. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Be sure to check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can check out his Facebook page as well. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more Senator Sanders in just a second. And welcome back. Senator Sanders with us. Steve in Warwick, Massachusetts, watching Free Speech TV on the DirecTV satellite system. Steve, you are on the air with Senator Sanders.
All right. Yes, Senator. I heard your previous answer on the part about the treason there and stuff. But didn't these congressmen take an oath there, pull the Constitution and to enforce the laws, and I believe that their actions violated that Constitution. So are they going to be held accountable for violating their oath of office?
And who's going to hold them accountable? Do you think the Speaker of the House is going to hold them accountable? Do you think the Supreme Court is going to hold them accountable? It's not going to happen. I think the argument is that, to my mind, what they have done in the House is to hijack the political process. They lost the election. This is what they campaigned on. Their candidate for president lost by 5 million votes. In the Senate, they lost 2 seats. In the House, they lost seats, and the Democrats got more than 1 million votes than they did in the House of Representatives. They lost the election. And essentially what they have done is said, okay, well, we lost the election. The program we brought forth was soundly rejected by the American people. It doesn't matter. We now have the leverage of bringing the government to a halt, shutting down the government, not paying our bills, and we're going to get our way. So, what they are doing is something at a level that I have never seen before. It is an absolute outrage, and I think the American people understand that, and it's important that they pay a political price for that.
And that's next November. Al in Rome, Wisconsin. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Bernie. My basic question is, when will the VA put the priority on the patients instead of corporations, and how long will it take?
Al, you'd have to go into that in a little bit more detail. I think in general, the VA provides quite good health care to the veterans of this country. Some 6 million or so veterans access VA health care. They have a comprehensive approach. They have a lot of very good doctors and nurses and good staff. It is far from a perfect system, and you're never going to have a perfect system when you have 152 medical centers and 900 community-based outreach clinics. But in general, I think they do a good job. And I'll tell you, Al, what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand VA eligibility to make it easier for veterans who today are not eligible to access the VA to come into the system. We're also trying to expand VA healthcare to include dental care as well. Dental care is a huge issue in this country. A whole lot of people can't afford to get to a dentist, including many veterans. So we're kind of working on that issue as well.
So, and you're the chairman of the
yes.
of the Veterans Committee in the Senate. Do you see that backlog starting to resolve itself, or did that get worse from the government
guess what just
shutdown?
happened? Yeah. The answer is yes and no. Yes, the VA was making significant progress in addressing the backlog and dealing with the transition of going from a paper system to a digital system. But now, because they've had to furlough many, many thousands of workers, they're going to lose that progress. Now, we don't know exactly what the numbers are, but certainly that progress has been slowed down.
So we get Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz out. Well, don't get me started. I'll rant about it later. This is not a good way to treat it. We'll be back. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls here on Brunch with Bernie on Thom Hartmann. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Senator Sanders in the studio with us today, taking your calls. Brenda in Woodlawn, Tennessee, watching Free Speech TV. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, thank you, and thanks, like I said, everybody else for having a show like this. I really appreciate it. And I am from the district that Marsha Blackburn is in, and for anybody who might want to know, we are ashamed of her, and she does not represent our district. It's not her district. It's ours. But anyway, back to why I called. We were talking earlier about the minimum wage, and I was thinking that it's like they almost couldn't have planned it any better, because the more hours that people have to work, the less time they have for education, the less time they have for taking care of their families, which end up in daycare and nowhere else, the less time they have to actually get on the Internet and listen to shows like this and do their own research. They couldn't have planned it better if they wanted to dumb down our country.
Well, Brenda, I'm sorry, did you want to ask a question? Because you make a very important point.
Yeah, I wanted to see if that's an honest thing of what they might, like I said, it's almost like they planned it, you know?
Well,
are they really that devious? Do they really care that little about this country?
Yeah, well, yes, I think they do care that little about this country. These guys have a vision, is that I think what they are aiming for is a society where a handful of billionaires who can spend unlimited amounts of money in elections. If you are the Koch brothers and you have $71 billion, what do you think it means that you spend a few $100 million or $500 million on a bunch of elections around the country? That is like $20 to you. It just doesn't matter. So what they want to do, and their ultimate goal, is to end all restrictions on campaign finance. So the day will come where the United States Congress will look like these NASCAR riders, where they all have these patches, you know?
Yeah, that was my suggestion in my book rebooting.
Yeah, so some guy will walk around. I am sponsored by Goldman Sachs.
Right.
I am sponsored by Bank of America. Hey, General Electric bought me.
Yeah.
That's where you are moving. And Brenda's point is that meanwhile, while you have that reality, what's the other reality? The other reality is that people are living under incredible stress. They're working longer and longer hours, often for lower wages. They got to take care of their parents. They got to take care of their kids. Do you really think they're going to have the time to sit down and go to political meetings and get involved in the political process? Brenda's absolutely right. They're not. People are exhausted. They're tired. They're disgusted. And our friends, the Koch brothers and these other groups will get their way and control the political, and not only the political process, but the economy of America.
Yeah, and average people aren't running for Congress anymore. I think it was the 2010 or 2012 election was the first time that more than half of all the members of the House of Representatives were multimillionaires.
Yeah,
that had never
you're saying that
before.
as well. And because of Citizens United, I mean, it was bad before, it's worse now. If you're a normal human being, you're a middle-class person who's concerned about your country, your state, you want to run for office, do you really want to go out and spend half of your time raising the extraordinary sums of money that you need to try to win? Yeah. Meanwhile, your opponent, will have the Koch brothers pouring in huge amounts of money into their campaign. A very dismal situation.
Dave in Taos, New Mexico, listening on KVOT. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Oh, hi, Tom. Hi, Bernie. What an honor to speak with you, gentlemen. My question is that how can, and I think Mr. Sanders is a great hope, and I agree with just about everything he says. In light of that, how do progressives re-educate the people who are kind of brainwashed by the right-wing propaganda and somewhat justifiably suspicious of large government programs? How can we change some minds?
Dave, that's a great question. That is a great question. And, one of the things that I'm upset about is that my schedule called for me today to be in Mississippi, to be talking to some of the folks in Mississippi, tomorrow in Alabama, then in Georgia, and then in South Carolina. And the reason I'm going down south and holding these meetings is precisely to do what you are talking about, is to begin to talk to people who do not often have the opportunity to hear a progressive message. And here is the good news in the midst of all of that. There was a poll a couple of years ago, Tom. They asked Tea Party people who identify with the Tea Party, whether they thought we should cut Social Security. You know what they said? Overwhelmingly, no.
Sure.
All right. So you got a lot of people out there who really don't even know what the Koch brothers are about, what this agenda is about. They are angry. And people have a right to be angry. And what the billionaires have done is taken this anger and focused it in a way that becomes self-destructive to the people who are involved. So, and race plays a role in it with Obama as well. But what the good news out there is, if you asked the people in any state in this country, should we cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Every poll that I have seen is people are saying, no, of course we do not. Should we make college more affordable? Yes, we should, say the people. Should we ask the wealthiest Americans and the largest profitable corporations start paying their fair share of taxes? Yes, we should. So in other words, the agenda that we believe in of creating jobs, of protecting the middle class, is the agenda that people all over this country believe in. Unfortunately, there are many states, and Dave makes this point, where people are not hearing that message. How many people know, for example, that the United States is the only nation in the industrialized world that does not have a national health care program guaranteeing health care to all people? Tom, you tell me.
I would guess most people don't know that.
I think most people don't know it. They don't know that the health care system, or the non-system that we have, is the most wasteful and bureaucratic and expensive system in the world. They don't know that. Who is telling them? Who is telling them that? So what we need to do, as Dave indicated, is we need to develop a strong grassroots network. And the goal is to make sure that working people do not vote against their own best interests. To have people actively involved so that their kids will lose health insurance. I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff. Or not be able to go to college.
It's reverse populism. It's like turning it into a caricature.
It's like banging yourself on the head.
Yeah.
What is the sense of? Meanwhile, the Koch brothers laugh all the way to the bank. They're worth $70 billion. They got more tax breaks, and working people say that's great, and we're going to take away my own health insurance.
Yeah, that's crazy. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. Bernie, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Tom.
I truly appreciate it all these years.